Imagine two people waking up tomorrow morning. The first works 12-hour shifts, never misses a day, rarely takes a vacation. By the end of every month, they're exhausted. The second works fewer hours. Yet somehow, every year, they become wealthier. If hard work were the answer, this wouldn't make any sense. Construction workers would be millionaires. Nurses would retire early. Farmers would sit at the top of every rich list. But that's not the world we live in. Some of the hardest working people on earth struggle financially their entire lives, while others seem to build wealth faster without working nearly as many hours. So, what's the difference? For decades, we've been told a simple formula: work hard, save money, stay out of trouble, and eventually you'll become wealthy. It sounds reasonable. It's also incomplete. Because wealth has never been determined by how hard you work. It's determined by what your work is building. Most people spend their entire lives selling their time. The wealthy spend their lives buying back theirs. That single difference changes everything. And once you see it, you'll never look at money, work, or success the same way again. Imagine walking into a store where the only thing you can sell is your time. Every hour has a price. The more hours you work, the more money you earn. At first, it feels fair. Work an extra shift, earn a little more. Take on a second job, earn even more. But hidden inside that system is a limit that most people never notice. There are only 24 hours in a day. No matter how talented you are, no matter how disciplined you become, you eventually run out of hours to sell. That's why so many people feel trapped. A promotion brings a higher salary, but it usually brings more responsibility. A second job brings more income, but it leaves less time for your family, your health, or simply living your life. You're earning more, but you're also spending more of the one resource you can never get back: time. And that's the trade most people make without ever questioning it. They believe the path to wealth is simply to work harder than everyone else. But working harder only increases your income. It doesn't automatically build wealth, because income and wealth are not the same thing. Income is what you earn. Wealth is what you own. That distinction sounds small. In reality, it's the difference between running on a treadmill and building a machine that keeps moving even after you step away. Here's where the paths begin to separate. Imagine two people earning exactly the same salary. They live in the same city. They're the same age. They even save the same amount every month. On paper, they're almost identical. But after 10 years, one is still relying entirely on their paycheck, while the other has built wealth that continues growing whether they're working or not. What changed? Ownership. The first person spends nearly every dollar they earn. A bigger apartment, a newer car, more subscriptions, more things that quietly ask for more money every month. The second person still enjoys life. But whenever possible, they buy something that has the potential to pay them back. A share of a business, an index fund, a rental property, a small business of their own. Even intellectual property that continues generating income long after the work is finished. Little by little, they stop depending on a single paycheck. They begin building assets. And assets behave very differently than salaries. A salary pays you only when you work. An asset can pay you while you're sleeping, while you're traveling, even while you're spending time with your family. That's the moment wealth starts to become possible. Not because you suddenly started making more money, but because your money, your investments, and your assets slowly began joining the workforce alongside you. You are no longer working alone. And that changes the game completely. If building wealth is really this simple, why doesn't everyone do it? Because the biggest obstacle isn't a lack of intelligence, it's human nature. Every time your income increases, life gives you an opportunity to spend it. A nicer apartment suddenly feels reasonable. A luxury car starts looking affordable. A vacation becomes a reward you believe you've earned. None of those decisions are wrong on their own. The problem is that they quietly become permanent. Higher insurance, higher maintenance, higher monthly payments. a lifestyle that's more expensive to keep than it was to build. This is known as lifestyle inflation, and it's one of the most effective wealth killers ever created. The more you earn, the more your life expands to consume it. Before long, you're making twice as much money as you did 5 years ago. Yet somehow, you don't feel twice as wealthy. Because every raise disappeared almost as quickly as it arrived. The wealthy aren't immune to this temptation. They simply respond to it differently. When their income grows, they try to increase their ownership before they increase their lifestyle. They buy assets first. Then they enjoy the rewards those assets create later. That's a difficult choice in the short term, but over the long term, it's the difference between looking successful and quietly becoming wealthy. This is where the entire equation begins to change. Imagine hiring someone who never gets tired, never asks for a raise, never takes a vacation, and shows up to work every single day for the rest of your life. Sounds impossible, but that's exactly what every productive asset is designed to do. A share of a profitable company keeps generating value whether you're watching it or not. A rental property can continue producing income long after you've finished renovating it. An investment portfolio keeps compounding while you're asleep. At first, those returns seem almost insignificant. A few dollars here, a few hundred there. It's easy to ignore them because your paycheck still does most of the heavy lifting. But year after year, something remarkable begins to happen. The balance grows, the returns grow, and eventually, those returns start generating returns of their own. That's the moment compounding stops feeling like a theory and starts becoming reality. This is why the first $100,000 matters so much, not because it's a magical number, but because it's often the point where your assets begin making a meaningful contribution alongside your own efforts. From that point forward, every dollar has the potential to become another worker on your financial team. The goal was never to replace your income overnight. The goal was to slowly build a system where every year, a little less depends on your time, and a little more depends on what you own. That's when wealth stops being something you chase, and starts becoming something that quietly grows beside you. One of the most expensive financial decisions you'll ever make is waiting. Waiting until you get a better job. Waiting until you earn a higher salary. Waiting until the economy feels safer. Waiting until you think you know enough to start investing. It sounds responsible. In reality, it's often just fear wearing a smarter-looking disguise. The truth is, almost nobody feels ready in the beginning. The people who build wealth aren't the ones who have perfect timing. They're the ones who start before they feel completely prepared, because every year you spend waiting is another year your future assets never had the chance to grow. Time is the one investment you can never buy back. Miss a market opportunity, and another one will come. Lose money on a bad investment, and you can earn it again. But lose 10 years, and no amount of hard work can ever give them back. That's why building wealth isn't about predicting the future. It's about giving your money enough time to create one. You don't need to own dozens of properties. You don't need to pick the next billion-dollar company. You don't need a 6-figure salary before you begin. You simply need to start building ownership while time is still on your side. Because every small investment you make today isn't just buying an asset. It's buying years of compounding that tomorrow can never replace. At the end of the day, wealth was never really about money. Money is simply the tool. What people truly want is choice. The choice to spend more time with their family. The choice to walk away from a job they no longer enjoy. The choice to take risks without fearing that one mistake will ruin everything they've built. Hard work can absolutely change your life, but hard work alone has limits. Ownership doesn't remove the need to work. It removes the need to trade every hour of your life for survival. That's the difference. The people who become wealthy aren't necessarily the smartest. They aren't always the highest paid. And they certainly aren't always the ones working the longest hours. They're the ones who slowly build assets that continue creating value long after the work itself is finished. One decision, one investment, 1 month at a time. It rarely looks impressive in the beginning. In fact, it often looks painfully ordinary. But that's how almost every great fortune starts. Quietly, patiently. One small decision repeated for years. So don't measure your progress by how hard you're working today. Measure it by how much of your future is becoming independent of your time. Because the moment your money starts working as hard as you do, you're no longer just earning a living. You're building a life,